You meet someone. They're kind, warm, they laugh at your jokes, they listen, you feel seen, safe, maybe even understood. Then, out of nowhere they accuse you of something outrageous. Lying, manipulating, being just like everyone else. You stand there stunned, speechless. Not because it hurts, but because it makes no sense. It's like they're looking at someone else, a stranger wearing your face. You replay every moment. Did I say something wrong? Did I miss a sign? Was I too distant? Too close? You start questioning your sanity, doubting your memory, even your worth. But what if the problem was never you? Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But what if some people are so terrified of that truth that they'd rather burn the mirror than face what's inside? This video isn't about them. It's about what lives inside them, what they refuse to see, and what happens when they project their darkness onto you. We're talking about the human shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny, repress, and bury until they explode, and how that explosion crashes into your life in relationships, families, toxic workplaces, even on a global scale. Here's the terrifying truth. The person accusing you might not even know they're lying. Their shadow knows though. And until you learn to spot it, you'll keep walking into rooms where people smile with their lips but sharpen knives behind their eyes. By the end of this video, you'll know how to recognize projection, protect your mind from someone else's chaos, and stop confusing their darkness for your reflection. This isn't just psychology, it's survival. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn might save you from the next silent attack, the kind that leaves no bruises but shatters something much deeper. There's a strange moment in life that's hard to explain until you live through it. You're working hard, giving your time, going the extra mile, but your boss calls you lazy, micromanages your every move, and yet never owns up when things fall apart. You start wondering, maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe I am lazy. Or maybe you're dating someone, and things seem promising. But when the relationship deepens, they accuse you of being emotionally cold, closed off. You've been vulnerable, even more than usual, but they say you never really let me in, and then they vanish. Ghosted. It doesn't make sense until you realize something crucial. They weren't really seeing you at all. They were staring into a mirror, but the reflection was their own shadow. Carl Jung called it the shadow self, the hidden, darker parts of our psyche. We refuse to acknowledge. These parts hold our fears, jealousies, anger, and pain. Instead of facing them, some people shove them onto others, blaming, accusing, projecting. When someone projects their shadow onto you, you become the container for their unacknowledged fears and insecurities. They see in you what they refuse to admit in themselves. That's why their accusations feel so confusing and unfair. Understanding this can change everything. You stop personalizing their attacks, because you know they're not really about you. They're about a deeper battle happening inside them. So how do you protect yourself? First, recognize the signs: sudden harsh judgments, accusations that don't fit, emotional manipulation that leaves you questioning reality. Second, ground yourself in your truth. Trust your memory, your feelings, your sense of who you are. Third, create boundaries. You don't have to absorb someone else's darkness or fix their broken mirror. Remember, their shadow is theirs. It doesn't belong to you. The more you understand this, the more you can walk away without carrying the weight of their projections. You reclaim your peace. You protect your sanity. This knowledge is powerful because it frees you. It helps you see the difference between what's yours and what isn't. And in a world where hidden battles rage beneath polite smiles, that clarity might be the greatest defense you have. So the next time someone suddenly accuses you of something insane, pause. Don't rush to fix or prove yourself. Instead ask, is this really about me? Or is this their shadow trying to survive? Because once you see the shadow, it loses its power. You're not the reflection. You're the light shining beyond the darkness. We all carry a part of ourselves that we deny, suppress, and bury deep inside. It holds our jealousy, our anger, our fears, even our darkest desires. But here's the catch. The more we try to hide this shadow, the more it controls us. Because what we refuse to face within, we start seeing everywhere outside. It's the boss who calls you lazy, but deep down he's battling his own feelings of failure and avoids taking responsibility. It's the partner who accuses you of being emotionally distant, but what they really fear is genuine closeness. It's the person who points fingers, calling others liars, because they've built their whole identity on deception. This isn't just hypocrisy. It's projection, a psychological defense mechanism, where people unconsciously throw their own darkness onto others. They accuse you of the very things they cannot admit in themselves. Imagine a haunted house of mirrors, distorted reflections, bouncing in every direction, each person fighting ghosts that live behind their eyes. The scariest part, projection happens unconsciously. They aren't faking it. They believe it. They feel justified in their accusations because their mind has rewritten reality to protect their fragile ego. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's projection in action. It blinds people to their own flaws by projecting them outward, and you become the screen where their inner chaos plays out. Projection isn't rare. It's everywhere. Think about the friend who gossips non-stop yet warns you not to trust anyone. The parent who screams about disrespect but constantly belittles those around them. The social media user who preaches against narcissism, while flooding feeds with selfies. The shadow doesn't live only in villains or criminals. It lives in everyday people, your coworker, your partner, your best friend, even you. But here's the crucial difference. Some learn to face their shadow, while many do not, and those who don't, they can be dangerous. They move through life blaming others for the very flaws they carry inside. They confuse honesty with attack, clarity with offense, your boundaries with abandonment. You aren't allowed to disagree with them, because it threatens their fragile illusion. You aren't allowed to succeed because your success reflects their failure. You aren't allowed to walk away because your leaving exposes their emptiness. And yet, to survive, they convince themselves that you are the villain. Never them, always you. That's why when someone suddenly turns on you, it feels so haunting. It's not just betrayal, it's psychological dissonance. They're battling their own demons but using your name in the fight. If you don't understand projection, you'll internalize it. You'll carry guilt that was never yours, apologize for things you didn't do, shrink yourself to make others comfortable, and second-guess your own truth because someone else refuses to face theirs. But once you recognize projection, everything shifts. You stop taking things personally. You realize their accusations aren't about you. They're about their own shadow. This awareness frees you. It helps you keep your boundaries strong, guard your sanity, and walk away when the shadows become too heavy. You learn that not every attack is yours to bear, and sometimes the darkest battles are the ones people refuse to fight inside themselves. So the next time someone lashes out unexpectedly, pause and ask yourself, is this really about me? Or am I just the canvas for their hidden fears? Because once you see projection for what it truly is, it loses its grip, and you reclaim your peace, your truth, and your power. Stop carrying other people's chaos as your own burden. Start recognizing the warning signs earlier: the misplaced anger, the wild accusations, the stories that just don't make sense. Because underneath all that noise, the person yelling isn't really yelling at you. They're yelling at a fractured part of themselves, one they haven't met yet. Some people don't just have a shadow, they become it. At first they appear magnetic, confident, charismatic, utterly convincing. They speak with such certainty, offering clarity amid confusion, and for a moment you want to believe them. But beneath that gleaming surface, something darker pulses. Carl Jung called this dangerous transformation ego inflation. When the ego grows so large and unchecked, it consumes the entire psyche. The person no longer has a shadow, they are the shadow. This is the root of cult leaders claiming divine vision, narcissistic influencers preaching authenticity, while carefully curating every detail of their lives, and zealots who split the world into us versus them, preaching morality, while sowing division. These people don't just deny their darkness, they weaponize it. They create enemies, so they don't have to face themselves. Guilt turns into blame, fear morphs into rage, and doubt hardens into rigid dogma. Listen carefully, and you'll hear the patterns. They're out to get us. They hate the truth, only we are awake. Everyone else is blind. They speak in absolutes, demand loyalty, and if you disagree, you're not just wrong, you're a threat. an enemy, even evil. This isn't mere projection anymore, it's projection powered by influence. And that's when it becomes dangerous. Once someone believes they are morally flawless and absolutely right, they become capable of almost anything. History is filled with such figures. Leaders who rose on promises of salvation but dragged entire nations into chaos and destruction. They singled out groups, the outsiders, the heretics, the unclean, declaring them the problem, and people believed them because certainty is intoxicating. Don't be fooled by that confidence. Behind every inflated ego is a wounded, frightened child, desperately craving significance. And the bigger the wound, the louder the act. Jung said, the larger the persona, the smaller the soul. When the persona grows into a god, the soul nearly disappears. At this point, self-reflection vanishes. Doubt fades. Listening stops. They don't just project their darkness, they export it. They embed it in systems, followers, algorithms, and echo chambers. Reality itself gets rewritten, until those around them start seeing the world through the same warped lens, divided, hostile, black and white. You might think this only affects extremists, but look closer, the influencer who shames others for toxicity. But bullies in private, the self-help guru, who promises healing, but demands blind worship, the activist, who begins fighting for justice, but soon becomes addicted to outrage and purity tests. When someone stops seeing themselves as human, they stop treating you as human too. Empathy disappears. Nuance is replaced by judgment. Differences become threats. And that's when relationships, communities, even societies fracture under the weight of unchecked ego and weaponized shadows. So what's the way out? Awareness. Recognizing these patterns early. Understanding that behind every loud, absolute voice is often fear and pain. Not allowing yourself to be drawn into their battles or their black and white worldview. Hold on to your truth, your complexity, your humanity. Protect your boundaries. Don't mistake their darkness for your reflection. Because the more we see these shadows for what they are, the less power they hold over us and the more space we create for compassion, clarity, and real connection. When someone's ego inflates to godlike proportions, anyone who challenges them instantly becomes an enemy, a threat that must be silenced, controlled, or destroyed. This is the monster hiding in plain sight, not lurking in shadows, but basking in the spotlight, smiling confidently, preaching to the masses, and fully believing their own story. That's what makes them so dangerous. They aren't trying to manipulate you. They truly believe they're saving you. But what they're really doing is feeding off your attention, your craving for certainty, your fear of being alone, wrong, or lost. They offer a map, a purpose, and a villain. But here's the truth. The map is a labyrinth. The purpose is control, and the villain was never you. Carl Jung understood this deeply. When someone becomes possessed by their ego, when self-questioning disappears, they don't just blind themselves to their shadow, they become the shadow, not some lurking demon, but a rigid, unyielding identity that must always be right. These people don't look like monsters. They look like leaders, teachers, healers, lovers, often followed by thousands who see only their shining facade. But if you listen closely, you'll hear the echo of their wound, the desperation beneath their certainty, the hunger beneath their charm. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Ego inflation doesn't whisper, it roars. Yet, it only reveals itself to those still awake. Scroll through Instagram, and there they are again, smiling, radiant, confident. He's hustling, thriving, grateful every single day. Their lives look flawless. But something feels off. Jung called this the persona, the social mask we wear to survive. It's not fake, it's functional. We all wear different masks at work, with family, with friends. But in today's world, the mask isn't just worn, it's marketed, perfected, and broadcast to millions. Social media turned the persona into a product, a brand, a lifestyle. We don't just share who we are, we perform who we want to be. Smiles are curated, captions rehearsed, messy moments deleted, and somewhere along the way, we start to believe our own performance. Here's the paradox. The shinier the mask, the darker the shadow hiding beneath it. You've seen it before: the influencer preaching daily affirmations about peace and love, then crashing in a public meltdown. The friend who's always upbeat until they lash out with cruel words. The guru preaching humility, yet demanding silent worship. It's easy to label them hypocrites, but what's really happening is deeper and more tragic. They're trapped in their own persona, unable to admit weakness, unwilling to reveal doubt, because if the mask slips, if even for a moment, the fear is that the world will see just how lost they truly are. Jung warned us, the persona itself is not the enemy. The real danger lies in denying the shadow. When someone builds their entire identity solely on light, refusing to acknowledge their darkness, they become brittle and volatile. Their mask becomes a prison, and their true self is suffocated beneath layers of pretense. This denial fuels ego inflation, driving them further away from authenticity and deeper into projection. They point fingers, blame others, and create enemies, because looking inward is too terrifying. But here's the hope. By recognizing the masks and shadows, by embracing the messy, imperfect parts of ourselves, we reclaim our humanity. We stop chasing impossible perfection and start living honestly. Because true strength comes not from a flawless facade, but from the courage to face our darkness and still choose light. Remember, behind every radiant mask is a shadow waiting to be acknowledged. The journey isn't to erase it, but to understand it, and in doing so, to find freedom from the illusions that trap us all. Darkness thrives unseen, unacknowledged, unloved, and one day it bursts out not quietly but in front of millions. We live in the age of the public mask, where everyone smiles, succeeds, and shines online. But behind the screens, people are breaking down. Anxiety, imposter syndrome, loneliness, they are the hidden toll of pretending everything is perfect all the time. Think about it. How many times have you scrolled through someone's feed and wondered, why isn't my life like that? How often have you posted just to seem okay, even when inside you weren't? We're not just fooling others, we're fooling ourselves. Every time we reinforce that perfect persona, we push our shadow deeper underground. But here's the catch. The shadow doesn't disappear in the dark. It grows, it watches, it waits. And when it finally erupts, it doesn't ask permission. It sabotages relationships, fuels insecurities, lashes out in ways we don't understand. Because if we don't consciously make space for our shadow, it will force its way into our lives unconsciously. Carl Jung understood this. True wholeness doesn't come from polishing your mask. It comes from removing it, at least sometimes. It comes from looking inward, sitting with discomfort, and saying, I am not just light, I am shadow too. That's not weakness. It's maturity. It's power. Because when you accept your darkness, no one can use it against you. When you embrace your flaws, no one can shame you. And when you drop the mask, even just for a moment, you give others permission to drop theirs as well. The persona will always be a part of us. It's necessary, but when we mistake the mask for our true selves, we lose sight of who we really are. So next time you scroll through a flawless feed, remember what you're seeing is a costume, not a confession. A performance, not a person. Now imagine this. You're having a normal conversation, and suddenly it's not. The person across from you raises their voice, accusing you of being selfish, cold, manipulative. You sit there stunned, trying to understand, because none of it feels real. Here's the trap. You start doubting yourself. What if it's true? You apologize. You shrink. You carry shame that was never yours to begin with. This is projection in action. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But what he didn't say, and what we need to remember is this. Not all criticism is about you. Sometimes it's a confession in disguise. So, how do you protect yourself? How do you recognize when someone is projecting their shadow onto you? And how do you stop absorbing it? Let's break it down. Red flags appear as sudden emotional overreactions. You share a small opinion, and they explode. Their response is way out of proportion. You feel it's not really about what you said. It's the misplaced anger, the exaggerated accusations, the stories that don't add up. Beneath it all, the person yelling isn't truly yelling at you. They're yelling at parts of themselves they don't even recognize yet. Projection is like a haunted mirror. It distorts reality and throws shadows on your reflection. But once you learn to spot it, you can step back. You stop taking their anger personally. You stop apologizing for things you didn't do. You stop shrinking to make their fears comfortable. And that's the key. Awareness is your shield. Remember, their projection says more about them than it does about you. The shadow they refuse to face is trying to survive, and it's using you as a scapegoat. But you have the power to refuse that role. Stand firm, protect your mind, hold your boundaries. Because you are not the darkness they carry. You are the light that refuses to be dimmed. So next time someone lashes out with accusations that make no sense, pause, look deeper. Recognize the shadow behind their words, and most importantly, don't let their darkness become your burden, because your truth deserves space to breathe, without being smothered by someone else's fear. You're not always the villain in their story. That's a crucial clue. When accusations don't line up with your actions, when you're calm but they call you aggressive, or when you set clear boundaries and they label you cruel, something deeper is at play. This mismatch often means your presence has stirred something inside them they're unwilling to face. Sudden mood swings from warmth to coldness, safety to danger, admiration to attack are classic signs of projection. It's rooted in buried pain, and when it bubbles up, it shakes everything around it. They describe you in extremes: always, never, everything, nothing. These absolutes rarely reflect reality. They're weapons of control, attempts to trap you in a story that keeps their shadow hidden. Recognizing these signs doesn't mean you're paranoid. It means you're prepared. The natural reaction: defensiveness. You want to explain, clarify, prove them wrong. But here's the truth. You can't argue your way out of someone else's pain. When they've decided you're the enemy, no amount of evidence will change that. You're not battling facts. You're battling a story they've invented to protect their ego. So pause, take a deep breath. Ask yourself, does this accusation fit who I know myself to be? If the answer is no, don't defend it. Detach. Let them wrestle with their own shadow. You don't have to enter their fight. This is the essence of emotional boundaries. You can watch someone's storm rage without getting drenched. It takes practice. But here's a mental trick. When they throw a projection at you, imagine holding up a mirror, not a shield. You don't block their words. You simply reflect them back. Say nothing. Don't engage the chaos. See it for what it is: their inner turmoil spilling out. Then return to your center.
Grounding techniques help.
Feel your feet on the floor. Slow your breathing. Focus on your body's sensations. These small actions anchor you so you're not swept away by their emotional flood. People who absorb projection are often deeply empathetic. They want to understand, fix, help, but empathy without boundaries is dangerous. Start practicing self-checks. Ask yourself, what do I really feel right now? Does this person's version of me match my own truth? Am I shrinking to fit their story? Journaling, therapy, even 5 minutes of daily reflection can strengthen this self-awareness. The more you know yourself, the less likely you are to be manipulated by others who don't know themselves. Some people don't just project temporarily, they live inside their projection. They build their entire identity on denial. Being around them is like walking through a hall of funhouse mirrors, everything twisted, distorted, upside down. In these cases, the strongest boundary is space. You have every right to walk away. You have every right to say, this energy isn't mine to carry. You have every right to choose peace over proximity. Let them call it selfish. You'll know it's sanity. You are not here to fix their broken mirrors. Your peace is your power. Protect it fiercely, because some shadows aren't yours to carry. And recognizing that is the first step toward freedom. You're not here to carry other people's wounds. You're not a container for their unhealed pain. You are not a sponge absorbing every shadow tossed your way. You are a soul. Projection is real, but so is your power. So, the next time someone throws their darkness at you, don't catch it, don't fight it. Simply see it. Awareness is your armor. Self-trust is your path to freedom. Let's rewind to the start. You meet someone. They seem kind, warm, safe. Then suddenly they accuse you of something absurd, something that makes no sense, but now you know better. They aren't really accusing you. They're speaking to the parts of themselves they refuse to face. You just happen to be the mirror showing them what they buried deep inside. So they shatter the reflection. That moment, the one that leaves you confused, doubting, apologizing. It wasn't madness. It was projection. Their shadow trying to survive by pinning the blame on you. And that changes everything. You no longer have to carry the weight of their wounds. You don't need to shrink to fit inside someone else's fractured story. You don't need to fight, fix or prove anything. Because now you see, Carl Jung said, knowing your own darkness is the best way to deal with the darkness of others. That's the truth. We spend so much time trying to be good, to be understood, to be liked. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe real power, real peace, doesn't come from being seen. It comes from seeing clearly. It's about looking into confusion and staying calm. Witnessing cruelty without taking it personally. Recognizing when the monster isn't standing in front of you, it's living inside them. Maybe that's what we're really here for. Not to fight monsters, not to become saviors, not to always be right, but to learn how to see in the dark. Because once you can see, no one can trick you into holding their shadow. No one can confuse your light for their pain. No one can make you forget who you are. That's awareness. That's maturity. That's real strength. You don't escape projection by avoiding people. You escape it by seeing through it, by seeing them and still choosing peace.